Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. I am Iowa Joe, and there's no Mike.
Oh my,
Mike's kids got him the greatest present in the world, and that's to get him sick for Father's Day. So he had to kind of bow out this week, but I am still here. I did get a last minute co-host, John from the Motor City Metrics podcast, Detroit Tigers, the other cat
yes.
podcast, uh, or as he likes to go by, Yoop, because he is from the Upper Peninsula. That's a lot of words to put out of my mouth. I'm not used to doing the openings on this thing. Can you tell?
Yeah, I'm
But
the same way on our show. I don't do the opening either, so I hear you.
John, it's great to have you aboard. Why don't you tell us about your podcast real quick?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Um, for about 4 years now, I've been a part of the Motor City Metrics podcast with a couple of great guys out of Detroit, Rogelio Castillo and Chris Brown. Weekly, we kind of recap Tigers week. We talk about what's coming up. We talk about the direction of the team, all the standard things. Try to do it with some fun. We cover the Detroit Tigers minor league system as well. We'll hit on the big topics of Major League Baseball. It's just a fun discussion, good chat every week with a good couple of guys.
That's great. My two sports are football and baseball, but unfortunately, I'm a Braves fan, so I don't listen. I don't pay attention to the Tigers too much, and my team's not doing great so far this year. So injury bugs.
For me, when I was a kid, I was a big Braves fan as well as the Tigers because we only had 7 channels and one of them was WTBS.
When people ask me. Yeah, when people ask me how I became a Braves fan here in Iowa, it's the same answer. When I was a kid, we had more channels than what some people had. I mean, we still had probably 20, 30 channels or something like that. But the two main ones that you watched baseball off of was WGN and TBS.
Yep.
Well, when I was growing up, that was right when they went on their 14 straight NL East championship run. So, it was hard not to get into Braves fever. And of course, they had a lot of top guys, Chipper Jones, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, guys like that all the way through. So it was hard not to get into the Braves when you had them on your TV all the time.
And you just mentioned Hall of Famer. So yeah, it's pretty easy to root for those guys. Absolutely. That had to be a real fun decade for you, no question.
Yeah. So it was. That's how I got into it, and that kind of leads into the topic for the day. We did put out the poll this past week on what the listeners wanted to hear us talk about, and we gave you 4 choices, and the choice that was the most popular was bucket list trips. And by that, it means where in the world would you like to most visit before you kick the bucket? So I've got my list. Yoop's got his list. We're just going to go back and forth and just talk about what we've got on our list. I'm going to go in order from 5 to 1. You can do whatever order you want to do on yours. But since you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first with your first one.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Are you familiar with Rick Steves on PBS? A guy named Rick Steves.
I know the name, but I'm not familiar with what he does.
He's a tour guide, basically, and he has a TV show visiting Europe.
Okay.
And I have a son who, my son's in a wheelchair, so we don't travel as much as we used to before he came on the scene. I'm his biggest fan. But so what I do now, I kind of live through Rick Steves' TV show.
Right.
And when he goes to Europe, one that really always sticks out to me that I would like to go to is northern Italy. The Tuscan region up north toward the Alps. All of that would be amazing. Florence and Tuscany has just so much history, much incredible scenery, incredible wine. Not far to travel on and go to France and Spain from there. So for me, the first one that came to my mind was Northern Italy.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of history, beautiful scenery and stuff like that. That obviously would be a bucket list choice for anybody. I mean, all of Italy would be a bucket list choice for anybody. But
Mhm.
I mean, like we were talking earlier, trying to narrow down all the places we want to go to just five is really rough. But I think that's a solid one to begin with. Um, my number five is a little bit closer. It's possible. It just I've never had the time or the money to go out to do it.
Okay.
Um, Mine is a little bit in the way of yours, where I am also a big fan of history. So most of mine all have to do with historical sides of things. And so my number five spot would be Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I even as a kid I did a lot of reading over the Civil War. I have I'm a big genealogist where I've traced a lot of things. So obviously one of the big things for anybody who's in the US, if they trace their family history back, is of course Civil War. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think I know of anybody in my family that actually fought at
Yeah.
Gettysburg, but being that's one of the biggest historical battles for that war. And also on a side note, I'm a big paranormal guy. I do believe in ghosts. I do believe in stuff like that. And they say Gettysburg is one of the most
Okay.
haunted battlefields there are because of the death and because of all the destruction and that there. I know they do like ghost tours
Wow.
and that would be another thing that I would love to do. I have a friend that
That'd be wild.
goes to Gettysburg regularly, and she does the ghost side of it, and she said she's had a lot of experiences out there. So one, I'd love
Wow.
to get the history out of it, and two, the paranormal side out of it.
I just so happened to have been there in 1990. I want to say it was 1999. It's amazing. I grew up, there's a lot of similarities. I read all Civil War and World War II history, gobbled that up all the time. Um, if you get to go, it's there. You get on top of Little Round Top and you look down that hill where that Confederate charge came up, and the regiment from Maine beat them back.
Yeah,
And just to imagine what was going on in those tight quarters with all those trees, just unbelievable. And it's really you can make easily a 2-day trip out of it to see all the sites of the battlefield. Quite a few hills. You got to be
yeah.
ready to walk it, but otherwise, it's really amazing. I would love to go back.
My mom and sister got to go for a school trip. Oh hell, that was probably 20 years ago, if not a little less, maybe 19 years ago.
Mhm.
And they didn't get to spend a ton of time there, but they at least got to spend some time there. And she's always wanted to go back too. So I mean, and like I said, I got a friend that tends to go over there for the paranormal side of it a lot. And from what I hear, it's a great place to go. And, like I said, it's one of those that's doable, but having the time and the ability to get out there is what's the hard part about it.
Yeah.
So number four for you, or whatever order you're doing in.
Well, I went back to my baseball side. I This is very obscure, but every year in Fairbanks, Alaska, they have a game called the Midnight Sun Game, and it's part of
Okay.
the Alaskan Summer League, where they get a lot of the very good college players up there for the whole summer, and they go through about a 40-game season. But on the longest day of the year, on the solstice, they have a game that starts at midnight, obviously, and they play through the night. They get done probably about 2 a.m. I would love to see, as a baseball fan, I'd love to go there for that. There's a big brewery in Fairbanks called Hoodoo Brewing, which is just a fun name. So,
Yeah.
so if there's a baseball one, especially on the amateur side, I would love to go up to Fairbanks and see that one.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I was really that was another one that I was really tempted to put on my list, as I've always wanted to go to Alaska.
Mhm.
I'm on the side that I'm not a big warm weather person. So, I always
Mhm.
laugh that my vacations always tend to go to places that are cooler than where people normally go. So I go to like Green Bay and stuff like that. So
Sure.
Alaska would be on that northern part where it would be fun to take a trip up there. Um, but yeah, that definitely would be fun having playing the, watching the midnight game, because yeah, they have days where the sun's up,
Yeah,
24/7,
exactly.
and so that would be really fun to see that. Uh, Kind of an honorable mention is the next time that they have a game in Dyersville, I'd love to
Oh,
go up for the Field of Dreams game.
yeah.
So they kind of fit in with that, but no, Alaska would be a fun one for another one like northern Italy. The scenery would be amazing, and then just to be able to spend time at that ballpark and watch them play would be great. Well, my number 4 is another one that goes along with the history and could possibly go another one with a little bit of the paranormal side of things. But it's a little bit on the other side of the country compared to Gettysburg,
Okay.
and that's down to San Antonio and going to the Alamo. Again,
Uh,
big history type guy. That would be another bucket list spot to go down and spend time around there. I know it's not I know it's the big tourist trap now, and it's got more of the stuff like that, so you can't really do much around it. But still, we've what a lot of Americans don't understand is we're a fairly new country compared to what the rest of the world is. So our historical sites are relatively few and far between compared to what, going to England or going to Italy or stuff like that is. So the Alamo would be probably one of our earlier parts of our history,
sure.
and that would be a fun one to go visit. Again, like I said, I'm a big historical guy. Whereas you talked about, you read a lot about the Civil War and World War II. I did more of from the Old West back to like the early 1800s. So the Alamo was a big part of my reading
Sure.
structures. Uh, and of course, who didn't grow up with the stories of Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and stuff like that. So it'd be fun to see the place where where these legends came out of.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be wild. And I've not been to San Antonio. My wife has. And little known fact is they call themselves the pecan capital of the world.
Oh,
So
really?
if you're a pecan pie fan of any kind, that's the place to be.
Yeah, I love pecans. I love pecan pie. So that would be amazing. I could have had a shot at it.
Hmm.
When I started college, I started to go through the journalism program, and I started covering the criminal justice department. And the
Mhm.
year that I started, they took a trip down to Texas. And when they got back, I obviously did interviews and stuff like that with the what do they call it? The advisors for the criminal justice department and
Huh.
the criminal justice club and all that. And me and him got in pretty good with each other. And he said, well, next year, we'll, instead of doing the interviews, we'll just take you with us. Well, unfortunately, things happened. I didn't make it to the next year. So it bypassed it, and I didn't get a chance to
Sure.
go down with them. So, but all right. So, number 3, what you
Number
got?
three, number three for me is a little weird, but that's okay.
That's
Um,
fine. Weirder the better.
Jim Belushi,
Okay.
the actor. He had a short-lived show on a few years ago where he was on the Rogue River in Oregon, and he bought this dilapidated state park that was right on the Rogue River and built this wonderful house. And he also built a large pot farm.
I was going to say, isn't that where his weed farm is?
And I'll tell you, I fell in love with the scenery. The water is coming down out of the mountains. Beautiful river. I would love to take some kind of boat excursion down that river, or stay in a house on that river and get out to the ocean as well, in the Bandon area. Oregon just looks like it's a state not a lot of people talk about, but
Right. Yeah.
I think it's pretty underrated in terms of scenery and natural beauty.
Well, and then you're going to sample a lot of the product when you get over there
Sure.
with it.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, that
Learn
one's
Rome.
not one. Yeah. Or Oregon.
Yes.
Yeah, that one I would never thought of. I mean, it's a good idea. Uh, and with it being a former state park, you got to believe the scenery would be just amazing for it. Um, and he's got the money to be able to do whatever the hell he wants over there, and Oregon is one of them open states where you can do that stuff. So
Yeah, the whole area, just the entire area that he showed as part of his show, looked very, very memorable and just beautiful. Nice little small towns, with the small town coffee houses. I love that kind of stuff. So, or in little breweries, those type of
yeah.
things. That would be a great trip. I've had that on my mind for a while. And the nice thing is that's actually a trip that with my son, I could see us pulling that off. So that could be a bucket list thing that happens.
Now, could that be one of the rivers that they take like the river cruises through?
I don't think so. It looks a little smaller than that.
Okay.
It looks, yeah, but it looks like something like if you could kayak parts of it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because every once in a while, in our area, we get a lot of the commercials about those river cruises, and they go up all the way to Oregon and back down, and
sure, well, it's possible. I guess I don't know. I shouldn't say no or yes to it. I'm not positive.
Well, I know they follow. What is it? They follow one of them follows the route of the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Yeah, that's the Columbia River.
So I didn't know if maybe that could be like an offshoot of it or something. But no,
That's
that would be
possible.
that would be a cool trip. Yeah, I could see that. Now, I'm not a partaker of the marijuana, but I mean, hey, you do what you do with that. I'm open for anything. I'd love to be up there just for the scenery.
Yeah.
So
I don't smoke it. I don't mind a gummy.
well, and be careful in Iowa because we're losing those things too.
I know.
So my number 3, I'm actually traveling over the ocean. This one is going to be a little bit of what I talked about where I do my genealogy stuff. So this is kind of, as you want to call it, like one of the motherlands of one of our family trees, and that's to go to Scotland. I supposedly they even have a county over there that's how my grandma's maiden name was formed. Was it started out as so and so of Forbes, and it just ended up, okay, well, now you're Jim Bob Forbes, and so it just that. And I'm not just talking about the one area. I'd love to do everything in Scotland. I mean, you got everything over there, historical wise. You got the William Wallace stuff. You got the Blarney Stone. You got all this other stuff in Scotland, and it just now whether or not I'd be able to understand them when I got over there would be a completely different story. But yeah, that one from a historical and kind of a genealogy point of view would be my number 3 trip.
Nice. No, I think I used to play a lot of golf when I was younger. I stopped playing when I was basically about around the time we moved to Iowa. But yeah, going to Scotland was always high on my list too. Not so much recently now that I don't play golf anymore, but
right.
Reading about the history, reading about, if you're a golfer at all, then it's nirvana. Everybody I've spoken to who's gone there loves it. But they also say if you get out into the country, into the rural areas, the people are amazingly welcoming of Americans and a lot of fun to talk to. But yes, also hard to understand at times.
And see, I've tried I'm one of those that I like to experiment with like other country foods and stuff like that. So I have had their national drink, Iron Brew. Now, Scotland folk, I understand it. It was not my cup of tea by no means. It definitely is not one of those drinks that looks like or doesn't taste like how it looks.
Right.
I don't know if have you ever heard of Iron Brew?
No, I have not.
So it's a soda pop.
Okay.
And it's orange as orange can be, but it does not taste orange.
Really?
It tastes like a weird bubblegum type flavor to it. And now I was told I did it kind of wrong. I bought the plastic bottles of it, and they say it's best when you get it out of a can. And I just, it wasn't, but it's got some kind of, chloroquine.
Oh, really?
It's got like a form of chloroquine in it. And it's like, because they're saying it's like medicinal too. And it's like, well, of course it's medicinal. It's got medicine in it.
Wow. Okay. Where did you get it? Where did you end up getting it?
I found it on Amazon. Surprisingly,
okay.
Amazon. You can get a lot of that stuff from Amazon.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said, I was told I did it wrong. I got the plastic bottles and I should have got the cans out of it. But yeah, hey, you guys do you. I'm sure there's stuff over here that we have that you guys just have a fit over. So
that's probably right. So
yeah, that was my number 3. So we're on number 2.
All right, for me, my last name is Urkala, and where I'm from in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. A lot of people from Finland immigrated to work in the copper mines and so on in Upper Michigan. So I grew up about 4 hours north of Green Bay. That's how I became a Packer fan as a young boy. The Packers were always on in our area. We used to get local news. 2 of the 3 networks came out of Green Bay. So we'd get a lot of Green Bay news and obviously then a lot of Packer news. So that put me on the Packer track for a lifetime. But because there's so many Finns up there, I actually ended up working for a small school that unfortunately closed called Finlandia University. And I was the next in line to go to visit Finland to recruit students. But I quit to move with my fiance at the time, my wife now, to Minnesota. So I didn't get to go to Finland. Which as someone with Finnish ancestry, I really wanted to go. So for me, I would like to see Finland, Norway, and Sweden, and go through the fjords and all through the Baltic area into the north of the Lapland of Finland. That would be amazing to me, and that might be a little personal because there's not that many Finns, right? That you know probably, but that would be something for me. That would be a timeless trip. But also, again, it all goes back to baseball for me sometimes. Just for kicks, during the pandemic, I started following the Finnish Baseball League, which who knew there was one, right? Yeah. and it's terrible. I mean, I wouldn't tell it to them. I wouldn't say it to their face, but it's probably 9th grade level baseball here in Iowa. Okay. 9th and 10th grade,
Yeah.
But they post all the games. They take it pretty seriously. There's a team called the Tigers, and since I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, I kind of root for the Tigers.
There you go.
Yeah. So I would love to go see a game, and I'm also a baseball umpire, so it'd be kind of funny to see what the umpires over there are like in Finland. But mostly, I just want to see Scandinavia in general, because I think Norway also would be just unbelievably beautiful.
Well, I'm not going to spoil my number 1 then, so I'm just going to jump ahead and go to my number 2.
Okay.
My number 2 is baseball related.
Okay.
I mean, there is a historical side to it, but I kind of alluded to this earlier. I'm a big Braves fan, and so my bucket list trip has always changed. Now, I've seen the Braves play. Being that I have family in Wisconsin, my mom took me to a couple of Braves games when they played Milwaukee at Milwaukee. Sure. I went the first year that Miller Stadium opened up, so I was there when they first opened their dome, the retractable dome. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then I was at Chipper Jones's last game in Milwaukee.
Nice.
So I have seen the Braves play, but this bucket list place has changed several times. When I was younger, it was Fulton County.
Yeah.
Then it became Turner Field, and now it's Truist Park. So obviously it's Atlanta, Georgia. Of course you got the history side of things too.
Sure.
Obviously that, they did the March to the Sea during the Civil War and burned down almost everything. So almost everything is brand new compared to what it was. Kind of genealogical side of things with it too. Some of my mom's whatever times great grandpas on 2 different sides actually fought for the Union as they were going through Georgia. One
Okay.
was mortally wounded. The other two were able to make it back. So, that historical plus familial side there, but mainly I just want to see the Braves at Truist Park.
Yes.
That's the big thing. Again, it's another one of those that it's possible, just timing, money, stuff like that has held me back from it. So, uh, yeah, that one's my number 2. It would probably be my number 1, but I've got a special spot for number 1. So,
Oh, very good. No, hey, I would love to, the Braves, they've had such a good baseball history in the last couple of, 3-4 decades. It would be cool to get down there to see a game. I'm actually heading down with my son and my wife about 40 miles away from Atlanta. We're heading there in October. My son has been invited to play in the National Miracle League All-Star game.
That's cool. That's great.
So he's going to get to hit the ball a couple times, and someone will push him around the bases. But it's going to be with kids from all over the country. And so we're taking the road trip down there. It's going to be a good time. Unfortunately, I was hoping it was during baseball season, but it's not.
Yeah,
October 6th. And maybe the Braves might have a playoff game, but
they might be in the playoffs. There you go.
So we'll see.
Where is he going for that?
It's 40 miles on the east of Atlanta, and
okay.
Now that I'm on the
You're
spot
blanking
here,
on the name.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But
see, my mom had an uncle that lived down there, and I think it was in Athens that they lived for the longest time. So I know the area a little bit. I've never been, but I know it a little bit just because I've talked to him and he's told me a little bit about some of that stuff. So, but that's really great. That's a good cause to go down there, and that'll get him to see a lot of things that he probably wouldn't get to see normally either. So
we're really excited. He's been playing Miracle League baseball here in Ankeny since he was 5, and he's about to turn 14 next week. So he's to a lot of baseball games here, and I take him to a lot of ball games at Principal Park. For the Iowa Cubs. So this is kind of a pretty cool thing.
Well, that's great. That's great. I love seeing that stuff. And he's outdid me. I haven't even been to Principal Park. And for those that might not know, Principal Park is the AAA Iowa Cubs. It's the Chicago Cubs' AAA affiliate. So, they've had a lot of big names that have went through Des Moines to get to Chicago. I think when I was a kid, I think not Kerry Collins, that's football dummy. Kerry Wood was going through. Yeah, it was going through at the time. So that would have been the big one to go see. But like I said, I just never made the trip. That's just like in Burlington, which is only about maybe an hour away from me, is the Burlington Bees. And that was the Angels affiliate for a long time. And go figure, Mike Trout would have been there. Yeah. Who's the other big one that was there at one time that I completely whiffed on? But yeah, they've had a lot of them go through there. So it's amazing. Iowa has no professional team of their own, but they have plenty of sublets of teams, affiliates.
Yep.
So let's see. We're on number 1. So it'd be your number 1 pick.
Okay. My number 1 pick is something, again, maybe not everybody else wouldn't be on top of everybody else's list, but it's for me and my wife. Ever since we were young, we talked about, and I'm also like you. I don't mind a cooler weather. I'm fine with that. Especially we're going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where my old stomping grounds, next week on Lake Superior. And right now they're saying the temps are going to be in the mid 60s the whole week. Beautiful. So one thing we talked about is on the East Coast, we would love to go to Maine and then up into Newfoundland in Canada. Some of the scenery you see there looks so amazing. You can stop and get, low cost lobster dinners everywhere because it's right on the coast. We just think that a couple weeks cruising up and down that coast, staying in small towns, seeing the scenery, Acadia National Park, those kind of things, which is supposed to be one of the most beautiful spots in the country. We would love to do that coastline and do it in a way that you're kind of just lounging around for parts of it and taking it all in. If you had enough time to do it, that would be the way to go.
then in Maine you can hit a lot of the haunts of the Stephen King universe.
There you go.
So you go through there and catch a lot of those. Uh, but no, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to hit Newfoundland too, just because of the Viking, stuff
Yes.
that they've found through there. That would be really neat. Um, so yeah, that would be a fun trip, especially about late June, early August. That way you're getting a lot of the beautiful sight, but it's still cooler temperatures throughout that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that would be amazing. That would be a hell of a trip. And make it a road trip, not just you go there and stay in one spot. You just got to travel it.
Yep. 100%.
That would be great. So I didn't want to spoil my number one when you were talking about your number three,
Okay.
because you started mentioning Scandinavian. That, well, this one is my ultimate spot to go to because of family ties, because
Okay.
of genealogy, because of history and all that, and that's Sweden.
Wow.
My my dad's dad and his siblings were the first generation born in the US. So my grandpa's parents came straight from Sweden over to the United States.
There you go. Yeah.
So, and of course, I didn't know any of them. My dad didn't really know any of them because we both came along later in our parents' life. That by the time we came around, all of them were pretty much gone. So we never got to hear a lot of the stories. We never got to talk to a lot of the ones that had been over there. So, and I know I still have relatives over there digging through the genealogy, and some of them are relatively close relatives, like third, fourth cousins still.
Okay.
So it would be fun to go over there and make the trip. Um, Beings that I have a ton of the Swedish and the Scandinavian blood in me, I feel Viking, so I got to go through the Viking heritage over there. Um, but I do have a cousin. It's be my dad's first cousin,
Mhm.
that did make the trip over there and did see a lot of the familial sites and meet a lot of the family over there. And she's always told me that needs to be the trip to make. And, unfortunately, or fortunately for her, unfortunately for me, she had the means to do it because her and her husband are both, they're pretty much well off. She worked
Okay.
for NASA for years, and her husband is a doctorate in like physics and mathematics, and he
Nice.
worked for NASA, and he was a college professor, and he still gets called back even though he's retired like a dozen different times. He still gets called back to work. So they had, and he's actually from Norway, so he had a house in Norway while also living
Yeah.
in the United States, so that was easy for them to go back and forth for it. But now that they're
Cool.
getting older, it's harder for them to get over there. But like I said, family ties, beautiful scenery, historical, and that's old historical. I mean, that's like,
Oh yeah.
pre, way pre United States historical. So that would be my trip.
I,
Um,
that sounds great. I kind of lump in Sweden. It's on the border with Finland, on the border with Norway.
yeah.
Just that whole thing would be just unbelievable to see.
See, I made my dad do one of those ancestry DNA tests years ago, and it's so funny because we know they came from Sweden, so
Mhm.
that, but we have to lump it Scandinavia because they were so close together that
Yeah.
the ancestral DNA stuff broke it down to, well, it's this part Norwegian, this part Finland, this part Swedish. Well, we know they grew up and were born and raised in Sweden. It's just,
Sure.
there's so much cross mingling in there that
Yeah.
that it splits up like that. So that one, and it would allow me to get over there and dig into some of the genealogical stuff over there, and because it's hard to, even though we're in the time of technology and we can get into that stuff, I don't speak a lick of Swedish.
Yeah.
So
The good news is, I believe everybody in Scandinavia speaks like 3-4 languages. So I think half of them speak English, and we'd be okay.
yeah, and that would be something that they could take me to the places where they have the records and that, and they could translate for me. So we'd be pretty good on that one.
Yes.
So since we've got a little bit more time to go, do you have any honorable mentions that you'd like to throw out there that probably should have made the list but didn't quite make the top 5?
Yeah, well, going back to the Rick Steve show, there's this little place in Austria called Lake Hallstatt,
Okay.
and it's this picturesque little village where they had a salt mine, and
Okay.
there's this beautiful lake that's kind of up in the mountains. So you kind of come out of the mountains, you come over this hill, and there's this gorgeous lake in front of you. It just looks like, you're stepping back in time to about 1788. You know what I mean? All the houses are old. They get around by these little rowboats. Everybody eats fish that comes right out of that lake. That's what half your diet is. They have their own special liquors and stuff that they brew right there. Lake Hallstatt for me is way under the radar, but I've seen that episode of Rick Steves enough times where I want to see that before I'm done.
There you go. I'd have to say my honorable mention is probably Greece. I'm big into, also I love like mythology and stuff like that, so it'd be neat to see like go to Athens and the Acropolis and
Nice.
the Greek Senate and stuff like that to visit those places. So that would probably be my honorable mention. But really, it's a bucket list.
Yeah.
There's a number of places that I would love to go that just didn't make the top 5, and some of them you probably couldn't go to just because of political and the issues that are going on currently are stopping from happening. But I'd love to go to like who wouldn't love to go to Moscow just to see the the old Kremlin and the spires and stuff like that. But try getting into Moscow without getting yourself killed being an American.
You end up in a prison. Would be a bad part.
Yeah. Or going to obviously I'm not a big religious guy, but it still would be cool to go over to like the Middle East and see like Jerusalem and Israel and those types of places, just to see that old, because that's old history.
Yeah.
That's pre that outdates the United States by like thousands of years.
A long time.
It would be neat to see some of that stuff. So, but again, because of issues going on now, it's almost impossible to get over there and be safe. But so obviously there's no news Packer wise going on, otherwise we'd be talking about that. We're still waiting on the Jordan Love contract extension.
Yeah.
Kenny Clark did say that his team and the Packers are talking about an extension for him.
He said he wants to be a Packer for life, right?
Yep.
Pretty cool.
And we've always said this with him, he's still young enough that it would not be hard to give him that third contract.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not they want to or not. Other than that, there's been no trades. There's been no nothing. It's pretty much dead. That's why we're coming up with these off-season episodes. But Yoop, I appreciate you coming on last minute. I mean, this was last minute. This was to the point that I was begging people on just random Twitter, random tweets asking somebody to jump on. So I appreciate you jumping on. Why don't you tell the folks where they can find you, and why don't you plug your podcast one more time?
That would be fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, again, my name's John Urkula, a lifelong Packer fan, but I do talk about the Detroit Tigers on the Motor City Metrics podcast. Big baseball fan. All of us on the show are big baseball fans. You can find Motor City Metrics at all the normal podcast outlets. We also have a YouTube channel. Just do a search for Motor City Metrics Baseball, and you'll find us. No problem. You can find me on Twitter at Yooper_IA. So Yooper, Iowa, at Yooper_Iowa. Excuse me. I was giving you an email address, but at Yooper_Iowa. Find me there. I have a lot of fun on Twitter. Talk baseball. I'm a baseball umpire. Talk about rules a lot. Certainly talk about the Packers when that's appropriate. So we have a lot of fun there. But this has been fun tonight. This was a cool last minute thing. My wife and I were just sitting there watching Bridgerton, and I've had enough Bridgerton for a while. So this was really nice, Joe.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Mike, obviously, it wasn't Mike's fault that he got sick, and it wasn't his fault that I was looking for a last minute co-host, but I kind of drugged Dad out for a road trip down to visit a couple of cemeteries that I found some genealogical stuff for. So it was like, all right, well, let's just go for a road trip. And it kind of took us away from the house for a bit. So I wasn't able to do any kind of co-host search like I normally would. But again, I appreciate you coming on. You can find us at Ohana_Packers on Twitter. And I think that's the same thing for Instagram and Facebook. We are also on all the podcasting areas. If we're not on the one that you specifically use for your podcast, let me know. I'm the one that has to go through and dig through and make sure we're on that one. We are still trying to do a giveaway of the Jair Alexander 8x10. That's when the Ohana_Packers account on Twitter reaches 523. Now, I have noticed that I have cleaned up a lot of the bots on Twitter, so we lost a little bit, but we are at 465, so we're only 68 away from hitting our goal. If my math is right, math was never my favorite subject, so we're but you must be following the Ohana Packers account. You can follow me, you can follow Mike, you can do all that, but to be eligible for the drawing, you have to be following the Ohana Packers account. You can also find all our articles and our merch store over at ohanapackers.org. Please go buy merch. It helps us. It funds us. It is not cheap to run a podcast. It's not expensive if you do it on the cheap side, but it still costs money, and any little bit helps. Please go buy merch. We have all kinds of it. We even have coffee. Go get Ohana Packers coffee.
Nice.
Or if there's something that if there's something that's not over there, again, let us know. Shoot us a message on Twitter. Send us an email at outbackpackers1919@gmail.com. Whatever you got to do, let us know. We'll get it up, get it posted. And like I said, any little bit helps. So get your merch. It also helps us in promoting the show. So any little bit helps. Again, any little bit helps. I'm begging here. Any little bit helps. But for me, for you, for the sick Kawano in his bed somewhere dying slowly because of his children, I do want to say I hope you guys had a happy Father's Day. This episode comes out a couple days afterwards, but still we're recording on Father's Day. So hope you had enjoyed it. Hope they got you something other than an illness like Kawano-san. So as he would say, we want to wish you a go pack go and an aloha.